Yeah, trendsetter, whoa, league of my own, it don't get better. No, read what I wrote, I'm a bestseller. Yeah, reach for my goals, hit it dead center, hit it dead center. Bullseye, hit it the most, is no misses. Something like fish in a barrel, it's no different. Blindfold on me, I still got the most vision.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Carnivore Evolution podcast. Today we have a special guest, Krista Robin, all the way from the United States. Krista, it's amazing to have you on. Krista's going to talk to us about her carnivore journey, how she struggled with her weight. She battled through PCOS. She battled with type 2 diabetes. So she's going to basically tell everything today. So with that in mind, you guys sit back, relax, and we're going to get started. So Krista, how are you today?
I'm doing fabulous. Thank you so much. We have summer happening here in California. You can only imagine how beautiful it is over here right now.
Well, what temperatures is over there? Because I'm usually jealous of you guys with the weather over there.
I live near San Francisco, so sometimes we get a lot of fog and wind, but it is very sunny outside. I'm going to go out after this and get my vitamin D in. So no sunscreen.
You're the same, Victoria, aren't you? You're in a very, very hot climate as well.
Oh yeah, I'm in Phoenix and it's 110 in the shade out here. And it's
wow.
not summer yet.
Oh my gosh, Victoria.
That's insane. That's insane. Okay, yeah. Krista, well, as I said, it's amazing to have you on. So I want to talk everything carnivore very, very shortly, but I want you to take me back to the very, very beginning. I know you mentioned to me your age, so you want to tell the audience your age at the moment?
Yes, I was born in 1976. I'll be 50 next year.
Wow.
I know that a lot of people that I meet on the street or, on the internet, they all think I'm in my 30s. I've even had someone say 28, and I'm like, what? I don't even remember being 28, okay? Like, I don't even. But yeah, no, I have definitely reversed my age through my diet, and it takes a lot of work, so we'll get into it. I've been through a lot.
Yeah, so let's go back to the very, very beginning when things began to turn downhill. Like what age were you? When did it start?
Yes.
Let's go back to the very, very beginning.
So, I will start like back when I was 13. I started noticing I was getting a lot of like boils and weird things with my skin. And I didn't know what it was. And of course, back then when you have a pediatrician that puts you on antibiotics anytime you cough or sneeze or have a pimple, I was overdosed with antibiotics because back then, I think in that time, they just threw antibiotics to see if it would clear up, no matter what it was. And so my immune system, I think, suffered a lot from being, just with all this antibiotics and things like that. Found out later on I had hidradenitis suppurativa, which is it's a skin disorder that affects the sweat glands. So you can get these golf ball sized, I guess, just these big boils inside of your underarm and in your underarms, under your breast.
Cysts. Yeah.
Cysts. Yeah, cysts. That's the word I was looking for. And you have to have them lanced by a doctor. And I was going through this at age 13, and I had no idea what was wrong with me. I felt so just, when you're 13, you're very picky about everything on your body, every pimple. So I just felt really depressed having this and going to the pool with a, bathing suit on. My mom, my parents really didn't know. They listened to the doctor. They didn't really ask questions. We didn't have the internet, so we couldn't really look at anything except for a book that my mom had from the 1940s. It was a medical book, and she would go through it and look at pictures of people with their skin disorders, and she'd say, "Oh, I think it's this. Let's take this to the doctor." Encyclopedia Britannica. That's all we had. So, you had to just make it up and go along with it. And as I got older, I started dating and things like that. And I was in a very abusive relationship with someone, and I didn't really know how to get out of it. I was too scared to leave. So I turned to food to really cope with this anxiety. So to this day, I still have bad anxiety, and it still is one of those things where when I eat, it helps soothe that feeling that you have. And so when I was eating, I felt really satisfied when I was extremely full. It was like almost painful, and it would help me sort of distract from the real things that were going on in my life. So that pain from that fullness, I actually liked it. I know that sounds crazy. But as time went on, I started feeling sick eventually. You know, we're talking like age 21, I started gaining weight. I was like 125 in my teens, and I'm 5'9". Okay, I was really thin. And I was a model. I was doing all this, stuff, film work. I was, trying to be a movie star at one point. And, it got to the point where I couldn't fit into the outfits that they had on the movie set. They were like, we can't fit you here because you're like over a size 8. So, it was, the depression set in. And then I was like, okay, forget it. I'm just going to go and eat because that makes me happy. So, I would eat things like giant hoagie sandwiches. Bread made me feel good. Pasta made me feel good. Rice was my weakness. And you could just see the weight just piling on very quickly. I think I gained 100 pounds in a year. So I went to the doctor. My parents saw that I was gaining weight, and they took me to a gynecologist, and I was diagnosed with PCOS. And I didn't really know what that meant. Still early internet. I have no idea what this means. And then you don't know how to deal with it other than they put you on birth control pills and just hope something happens, right? They hope something just happens. And the weight just kept piling on, and I was like over 200 pounds at this point. And the depression was so bad that, I wouldn't go anywhere. I would just sit at home and just eat. I would go to McDonald's. I would go to the drive-through and just sit in the car and just, it was just something that made me look forward to going to that place and eating there. And it was so bad that I would eat there, fast food twice a day, and it was just, I could get the biggest meal I could because back then it was like the super size it, you could pay 50 cents and get the bigger sizes and things like that. And I was definitely into the more the merrier, the more food the merrier. And I got my friends into it. That was another part of it, is that it was like a social thing where we would just have food parties, and we would go to Taco Bell. Back then you get a lot of Taco Bell for $5. So we would just spend, like $50 on Taco Bell and just have a burrito taco party and just sit and eat. All my friends and I got fat, it was just like you just wanted to be around other people that were into the same habits because it just made you feel better about it. Right. Okay. So next thing you know, I'm sick. I can barely move. I can barely get out of bed. And I was in college at this point, and I decided like I need to go get tested because I feel like I'm going to die any minute now. And they told me that my TSH, my thyroid, was 14, which is pretty high. So again, I said, what does this mean? I don't know. I have PCOS. I have this skin disorder. Now I have this, and I'm in college. I'm like, what do I do? I don't have, good health insurance. I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. So they referred me to an endocrinologist, and they put me on a synthetic thyroid hormone, and it made me feel more sick than I was before. So I eventually met someone, got engaged, moved in with him, and his parents were very concerned with my health. They didn't want their son to marry somebody that was very sickly. And I was significantly younger than my fiance at the time. So they were just worried that someone so young had all these health issues. So they actually researched doctors for me, and they found a naturopath on the radio. And they said, you should go see this woman. And she doesn't take insurance, but will, help you pay and, get you started with her. And she was just way different than anything I'd ever experienced. I think our session was 2 hours long. She just wanted to peel off the layers of the onion and find anything that could be possibly wrong. And she said, first of all, the food is number one. She said, you're eating just so much carbs. You're probably eating 100 or more carbs a day. The sugars, I loved candy bars. So, she said, that's got to go. And when someone tells you got to take out the loves of your life, which are chocolate, hamburgers with buns and things like that, you're just in shock. You're like, wait a minute, what? I have to give up things that make me happy. I don't know how to do that. And she says, well, she told me you're going to be a very haggard, wrinkled old lady if you don't stop. And I'm like, what? She was very blunt about what could happen to me if I kept this lifestyle up. So I said, well, I'm not sure if I'm ready for this, because how am I going to eat, poached salmon and broccoli like she's telling me to eat? And I thought, I can't do this. This transition is probably not going to happen. I went home. I did this for like maybe a week, and then I was like back on sneaking in pasta and things like that. So it's really hard when you have a food addiction, and I had a binge eating disorder as well. You can't just cold turkey go into that. You just can't, because some people can. I really envy them, but I really needed more therapy. I needed mental support, which I didn't understand that my brain was causing me to put things in my mouth and causing me to have these cravings. I really should have concentrated on getting therapy before just listening to what she said and just, okay, now I got to eat broccoli today, or now I have to eat a salmon. It was very hard. And I failed. I was on the amazing new thyroid medication that she put me on, which was Armor. I loved it. I saw results right away. I noticed that my inflammation was starting to go away. I will tell you that when I wasn't on Armor, my fingers, my feet, everything was so swollen. I couldn't buy regular shoes. I had to buy double, like the wide shoes, and I had to go to specialty stores. And I was so embarrassed because I like very feminine, shoes and clothes and things like that. And I just couldn't fit into something like a heel or like a Mary Jane flat or something like that. I had to wear these like giant loafers to get my feet inside. So after I got on the Armor, I started noticing difference right away. And I just decided maybe I need some other type of medication to go with this therapy, because she had me on 1,000 supplements that I felt like weren't doing anything. So I decided to go to, a Western medicine doctor and say, hey, I'm kind of in trouble here. Like, I feel like I might not live to another year, And so they put me on like Victoza. They tried insulin and things like that. And I felt like I was going to throw up every day. I felt so sick and dizzy and weird. I said, I don't think I can do this either. Like, I don't know what to do. So I ditched the other doctor, and I wanted someone that was a little more compassionate, a little more, I don't know. I needed my hand held through this process, because I just needed some more, empathy or something. So I found this woman finally, and she's a Chinese medicine doctor who also uses Western medicine. So she kind of integrates it together. And she found that, I just really needed to start meal replacements, which I wasn't excited about. But she started me on this protein shake made with peas. And even though that's not an ideal thing, it actually helped me get out of my food binging and my addictions. It actually kind of jump-started me into the lifestyle that I live now. So she was big on keto, and that was the first time I'd really ever heard the word keto before, and low carb. My A1C levels were like a 9, 10. Like I was full diabetic at this point. And she's like, you need help. Like, and you need to go home and be really serious about this because you're too young to be having so many problems, And I was, planning a wedding, and I really wanted to look good in my dress. So I had the motivation because I knew that my wedding was coming. I wanted to look amazing. And so I jumped into the gym. I had a free gym at the job I was at, which not everybody has that luxury, but I did at the time. And so I was in the gym every day for like 45 minutes. I would do treadmill and then just weightlifting. That was my routine: treadmill, weightlifting, 45 minutes. And I just started seeing just melting. I was just melting. And I was, I had to buy food. I mean, clothes every couple months because I was losing weight so much. And her diet, I will have to say, it was more of a low fat diet. It was a meal replacement with low fat. It was like turkey, chicken, vegetables. But let me tell you, I think the real reason why I lost the weight is because I wasn't eating processed foods anymore. No more processed foods, no more sugar. That was my key to what was really wrong with me. I was eating too much processed stuff before. And so, the internet was starting to talk about keto and more of the animal-based diets. And I thought, okay, I really like meat and I wish I could have more, because she had me on a very small portion of meat and a big portion of vegetables. And I was like, you know what? I really crave meat. I want more. So I, of course, joined a Facebook group. It was keto, more of the animal-based type of keto. And we would meet every other week or so, and we would order food at a restaurant in a keto manner. So we would say to the waiter, we'd say, hey, we want meat and we want to order extra portions of meat if possible. And then we would order in these very smart ways. We'd go to like a breakfast place, and we'd say, hey, we want 4 eggs. And they'd be like, okay. And then we want some avocado. Okay. And then we would totally be able to tailor our food at the restaurants. You can do that. You can ask for extra portions of meat. They'll charge you for it, but they'll do it. So we learned how to eat. And it was funny because right before my wedding, I went to try on the dress, and they said, oh my God, the dress is too loose on you. We're going to have to do alterations all over again. What happened? And I had to pay again for them to do the alterations. So I was like, well, I'm not really complaining. And then it was a couple days before my wedding. I went to go pick up the dress. I put it on. It was like slipping off again. And I'm like, oh God, you guys. So in my wedding photos, I have like a really baggy wedding dress on, but I didn't really care. I was like, you know what? I'm healthy. I feel really good. And everyone could not believe my transformation. They were just like, they didn't recognize me, period. They just didn't know. They thought maybe that he chose a different bride or something. I was like, no, it's me. But, the weight was just falling off. And, being married is wonderful, I guess, the first couple years, at least for me. And then, things started to get stressful, and, he had some health problems, and then things just didn't really pan out the way you imagine them when you're married, I guess. And I decided I wanted to get a divorce. And so I wanted to leave, and the stress from getting all your stuff from your house and getting a lawyer and moving on your own into an apartment by yourself and paying rent by yourself. It was a whole like anxiety attack. I just couldn't handle it. I thought it was going to be much better than what it was, but I had to go to therapy. I had to take medications. I had to take I don't even remember what I was on because I had them change it so much. I was on a antidepressant that made me fall asleep. So when I was at work, because I worked from home, I would be typing and I would just fall asleep. And I called the doctor. I said, you know what? I'm gaining weight on this medication and I'm falling asleep in the middle of work. What is this? Is this seriously what you put people on? Like, are these tranquilizers? What is this? And she's like, well, yeah, it's going to make you drowsy. And I said, well, how am I supposed to function day to day if I'm falling asleep in the middle of my workday? Coffee wasn't helping. Since I worked from home, I had to take a nap during my lunch break because I was so tired. So I finally called and I said, I'm not taking this anymore. I would rather have anxiety than fall asleep while I'm trying to work. So they're like, okay, it's your choice. You can go off of it, but just be warned. They always warn you when you go off medications. You're warned that, your anxiety is going to be really bad. And, and I'm like, it's fine. I'll deal with it. So it was more of a situational anxiety. So I knew it was going to go away at some point. And I just wanted to give it a chance to mellow out. So I moved in with a roommate, and then, financially it was a little bit better, but she was a psychopath. So, and she loved to eat. She brought home those those 5-gallon buckets of ice cream. And so I started really eating again. But I didn't gain any weight. It was really weird. I don't know what happened. So I was eating more and more with this person in my house, but I wasn't gaining weight, and I don't know why. I could never figure out that mystery. Maybe my metabolism was so good that I was able to process that food better. But she actually she attacked me. She tried to hit me, and she did hit me. And she tried to break one of my fingers. So I had to move out. Yeah, she was crazy. And I moved out again. And of course, rent's $2,400 a month here. And, you have to make about $90,000 to $100,000 a year to be alone, to live alone in this area. So, I mean, I wasn't making that much, but close. It was tough. It was very stressful. And I just I dropped all my medications, except for my thyroid medication. I take that every day, but I really just just let life just go. Like, I just didn't care. It wasn't really working out anymore. And I could feel that inflammation coming back. Like, my hands were just swelling up. And so I I lost my job. So that was an important thing because I lost my insurance. And so I had to go to a free clinic. And that was kind of how things went awry. Because going to the free clinic, you're getting a random doctor or a nurse practitioner. You can't pick or choose who you're going to see. You're going to get a random person, and you're going to get a random diagnosis as well. And so I went in and I said, I think my diabetes is back. I want to get my A1C tested and things like that. And so she tested it. She said it was a 10. So I had screwed myself up again. It was a 10. So she says, let's put you on Ozempic. I heard it's amazing. And I said, well, all the Hollywood hype about it, all of the influencers talking about it, I got excited. I didn't really do any research on it. I said, you know what? Yeah, let's try it. So I went to go pick it up, and this was 2 years ago. And I went to go pick it up, and the pharmacist looked at me and they said, have you been on this before? And I said, no, I've never been on this. And they said, well, this dose is a little high. And I said, okay. I said, what does that mean? And she says, well, the doctor probably gave you this dosage for a reason. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't understand. So she gave me the prescription. I went home. I took the medication and I felt fine that day. But when I woke up the next day, I completely lost my vision. Like, it was just blackness. And I was
Well,
crawling on the floor trying to find the bathroom. I threw up for like 10 minutes and I passed out on the toilet. Like, my head was like in the toilet. And
wow.
I called my mom. She came out. She took me to the hospital, and they took forever to admit me. And I kept passing out, like falling, passing out in the hospital waiting room. And they finally took me in. And, when they got me admitted, they said, oh my God, your heart is stopping. That is why you're passing out. And so I said, you're kidding me. They said, yeah, your heart keeps stopping for like 20 seconds, 22 seconds. And I was like, that's a long time for, to continuously happen within, like a couple hours. It just kept happening. So they put me in the ICU. I wasn't allowed to get out of the bed. I had to use a bedpan. I wasn't allowed to move for 2 days. The doctor came in, the cardiologist came in, and he says, I'm really sorry to hear this is happening to you. But we might have to put a pacemaker in. And so I said, what happened to me? I said, what is it? Did I have an allergic reaction or what? And they said, well, the dose that the doctor gave you was 1 milligram, which is not a starting dose. That is 3 times the amount of what you're supposed to get when you start. Is supposed to be 0.25 milligrams. He said, why did the doctor give you that much? I said, I don't know. I really don't know. I said, you guys need to call and find out what's going on. And of course, that free clinic didn't want to take responsibility for anything that happened to me. I was in the hospital, I think, for 3.5 days, and the doctors were just running in and out of the room, and they're just like, you need to go back on Ozempic. I'm like, why? Why? I don't want to go back on it. And he's like, it's okay. We'll put you on the regular dose. I said, I'm never touching that again. Don't put that near me. Don't put anything near. I don't want anything. Just go away. They were giving me a little bit of insulin in the hospital, just, like a little bit here and there to keep me stabilized. But I said, don't ever come near me again or talk about Ozempic again. I was so traumatized. When I came home from the hospital, that Ozempic commercial kept coming on, and I was like, turn off the TV. I had to go live with my mom because my legs, something happened with my legs. It was very hard to walk. Like, I had to learn, my muscles were just atrophied within 3 days, which I don't understand. It was very hard to walk. I had to use a walker for a little bit. So, that whole 2 weeks was just traumatizing because my mom, a week after I came home from the hospital, she fell and broke her hip. So I had to take care of her. And I just couldn't, I was just like, come on, give us a break. And I had to take care of her. I'm still taking care of her. It's been 2 years. But so going through the process of trying to figure out why this doctor prescribed that amount, it's still ongoing. It's being investigated by the California Medical Board right now. They are looking into the hospital, why they didn't admit me quicker. Like, what was the deal? Like, I was passing out in the waiting room. Why didn't you take her in sooner? And, I wasn't hooked up to the monitors or anything until way later on. So, they want to investigate them, the hospital, the free clinic, the doctor that helped me there, and of course the pharmacy, because remember, they questioned me without calling the doctor. So there's many layers and many filters of things that I went through, which someone could have caught it. The pharmacy could have caught it, and said, hey, this dose is not the starting dose. Hey, let's call the doctor right now, because this is a red flag. So there's many different people that failed me in 2 days, because I picked up the prescription one day and then I went to the hospital the next. But I'm just some people are not surprised by this. I hear stories now where people go through the same thing. They're misdiagnosed, they get the wrong medication, or they go to pick up their medication and it's an entirely different medication than what they were prescribed. I'm hearing a lot of horror stories about it. So, when I was trying to decide what to do with myself after the Ozempic, I had brain damage from this because my heart stopped too many times, and they said that I will have temporary brain damage for several years. It'll eventually heal and go away, is what I was told. So I said, what do I do now? I'm too scared to take anything. I'm too scared. So they put me on just regular insulin. I said, I don't even want to be on this. I know people that have been taking this for years and they're fine, but I just don't want to take anything. So I looked into Carnivore. I said, you know what? Let me try this. I had been watching Jordan Peterson and Michaela for a long time. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. So I did it. And I did it for 9 months. And I will tell you, the things that happened to me were not what I expected. I didn't lose any weight. Okay. I didn't lose any weight. I lost maybe 8 pounds the first 2 weeks, but then I gained it back. But that's not my success story. That's not what I'm like telling everybody that happened to me. That's good. What happened was my PCOS disappeared. My PCOS was the worst thing, because I would have a period that was so heavy and so bad. I was wearing a period diaper for a week. And, having a period that heavy, you just feel like you don't want to move. You're going to watch Netflix and just sit around and do nothing. But now I'm going to say it took about 3 months of Carnivore for the PCOS to sort of just ease up on me, to the point where it was like a breeze to be menstruating. I was bragging to my friends, hey, I didn't have any, I didn't have any swelling or weight gain on my period this month, and I didn't feel cramps. I didn't even know it was coming. And they're like, what? And I said, when I was on it, it just didn't bother me. And I hadn't felt that kind of relief in decades, And I was it was just 3 months into Carnivore, and my PCOS is gone. What do I do? I still grow facial hair. That's one thing that I don't think is going to stop. I still have to shave my face every single day. But the way I feel, I just don't feel like it's affecting me at all, which is huge for a lot of women. And I think they should give it a try. I said, just give it a try. Even if you just try it for 2 weeks, you're going to feel something. Something is going to make you go, oh, yes, I'm going to keep doing this because I feel pretty good. So, the PCOS, the Hashimoto's. So the bad part about the Hashimoto's is that I did find out last year that I had thyroid cancer. So I know, throw another wrench into the whole thing, but they said I had that cyst or whatever it was on my thyroid for years. It had been there for 8 years. And I said, well, how come I wasn't scanned? When I go into these communities for thyroid, they tell me they get scanned every year for thyroid cancer. They have an ultrasound. And I thought, they did not scan me. Even when I had nodules that they found 10 years ago at a different facility, I told my new medical provider, I have nodules. But they were like, okay, they put it in my file. They didn't say, hey, let's set you up for yearly scans. I recommend yearly scans if you have thyroid problems, because I had this huge, cancerous, cyst that they had to remove last year. I didn't know I had it. I did not know. So I really encourage people to get on that. So anyway, I had been on Carnivore already. So when I found out that I had cancer, I was pretty healthy. Like when I went into the operating room, people were like, you have cancer. You don't look like you have cancer. You don't look sick, or you don't seem like you'd be a candidate for cancer. And I'm like, yeah, I know. But I got this 8 years ago when I was eating terribly. I'm not going to say that eating terribly caused my cancer. I don't know what caused it. I'm not going to say it is, but my lifestyle around that period of time was pretty bad. So I would have to say that, in my opinion, yes, my lifestyle contributed to the cancer. So my mom has cancer, and she has bone cancer. So when I take her to her appointments, they always stress on her, don't eat sugar. Do not eat sugar. When you have cancer, it feeds it feeds the cancer. I mean, the sugar feeds the cancer, and you want to make sure that you have a very, low carb. They keep telling her this: low carb, no sugar. She doesn't listen to it. So she is in a maintenance dose of her chemo pills. Her cancer isn't progressing, but it's not getting better. It's sort of staying the same. And she won't listen. She won't listen to me. She won't listen to the doctor. When there's somebody who's very stubborn like that, you can only gently remind them, hey, the doctor did say no sugar, low carb. All you can do is just remind them. You can't really sit and argue. I don't like to argue with people if they're that set in their ways, because I know I don't want to end up getting in a fight over it, because then they end up resenting me and saying I'm being bossy or pushy. So,
But it must be hard on you, Krista, watching it.
it is.
Because I was the same. I lost my parents last year to cancer.
Oh my God.
And I had 3 years experience with carnivore, so I knew a good bit about carnivore.
Yeah.
And I knew that the situation was wrong.
Yeah.
We were told back in November 23 that they only had 6 months to live, both of them.
Both of them.
And I had told my partner, I said, listen, you need to listen to me. Okay, your mother and your father needs to listen to me. Just trust me on this. Remove the sugar, put them on a high-fat diet, just eliminate it. But the argument was, because they're in their 70s, they've lived their life. Leave me alone. Let me enjoy my sugar. Let me enjoy my alcohol.
Yes.
And honestly, it killed me. It absolutely killed me.
It is. It does.
And what made it worse was they were actually encouraging it. They were feeding her more sugar in the hospital. And I watched these two deteriorate in front of my eyes for 6 months. 6 months. The pain these people went in until they're not here anymore. For me, I've said this on so many podcasts. It's the biggest regret I have is I didn't do it more.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom's a spicy one. She will tell you what she thinks, and she will not be nice about it. So I have shown her reels. I've shown her Dr. Berg. Dr. Berg is a very approachable guy. He's, he has some great information that's really easy to understand. And my mom's, almost 80. So she has troubles with the internet. I can't send her a link, right? She doesn't know what to do. So I have to show it to her and say, hey, Mom, look at this is Dr. Berg. I've been following him for years. And this is why I look so good, and she doesn't believe me. I mean, she's just like, she's telling me I'm eating too much protein when I eat like with her, and I order like an extra patty if we go to like the burger place and I get just the patties and I order the extra one. She goes, why do you do that? It's too much meat. That's too much salt. That's too much fat. That's too much protein. Your kidneys are going to explode. This is all the stuff that they learned in the, I'm just going to say 50s, 60s. That's, the whole thing, like you're going to die if you eat red meat thing. That's been engraved into her brain, and she won't listen to me. I swear if I showed her a video on the sugar diet, she'd be really excited. But, it's... I cannot encourage her to do anything. I did tell her, I said, the doctor even told you, no sugar. You're not listening to him. But I'm going to die anyway. So I'm sure it's like when you have a parent that, has cancer and they drink and things like that and they eat sugar, they're just like, I'm old anyway. It's just like they just kind of give up. So
yeah, and I had this as well, because many of her family were saying just leave her alone, like she's in a good place, and I was like, you don't realize that she's being selfish, she's leaving me behind.
Right. I'm an only child.
Like, exactly. So I'm like, okay, hang on. I had to have this conversation where I say, listen, you're leaving me behind. Like, you're the person that's going to be in pain here is going to be me.
Right.
Like, you're not going to be here anymore. You know what I mean? I had my first Christmas last year without them, and I had to go away. I couldn't be here. I had to go away. So before she was going through this, I had to have those hard conversations where I say, listen, like, please stop this. This is rubbish. Like, you don't understand that, yes, you've lived your life, but you're leaving me behind. And I'm doing whatever it takes here. I'm going home and I'm crying into a pillow. And I'm like, you know what? I can't deal with this. Like, you don't understand the stress that I'm going through at the moment. And that's when I had, in a way, I feel like I had to be strict with her, but I didn't want to be because she was in a lot of pain. But I felt like I had to have that conversation with her, because if I didn't have that conversation with her, I would have lived my life with so many regrets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you know, that kind of way. So yeah, I can understand, but I just feel that when people are in that situation and they're talking this way, they don't realize they're being selfish. They really are, and they don't realize it.
It's a true addiction. It absolutely impacts, sugar impacts the same cerebral centers as heroin, morphine. It's an addiction. And until they recognize that and maybe make the effort to stop taking it in, it's not going to happen. And that's where the selfishness comes in. This makes them feel good. And you can't take that away from them. It's important to them. It's right there up front, close and personal, and you can't make them stop unless they recognize it and are willing to stop.
It's very sad, isn't it? It's very sad.
It's terrible. Yeah, very defeating.
My father died when he was 65. He had an invisible disease. He was a very thin man. So, everyone thinks thin is healthy, right?
Yeah.
He died from heart disease. And I cannot pinpoint how that happened because, I know he smoked a lot. I think he was a smoker when he was a teenager, and then he smoked until the day I took the pack out of his hands and threw it in the garbage when I was like 8. So he smoked for a long time, but he had not been smoking for a long time. Right. So I don't know how his heart disease came about. I really don't. He wasn't a big eater. He did snack on, candy bars here and there, but he'd cut it into these tiny pieces. My mom told me that he had an eating disorder. So I don't really know.
And isn't it amazing, Krista, like you said about the sugar diet? We're all falling on this trend where you look at everybody like Mark Bell, all these influencers, they all look amazing. They have the 6-packs, and everybody's looking at this and saying, okay, this guy's healthy. If this guy looks healthy, he has the 6-pack, then I can do it. And that's what we're fixated on. At the end of the day, sex sells, and that's what's happening in the industry at the moment. Every time you look on social media, everybody has their tops off. You look at the women. Look at me. I look amazing, and it's like, holy jeez, this is really, really bad. And then you look at the diet. It's like, you don't realize you know the difference between visceral fat and external fat. And this is what we're focusing on at the moment. We're only focused on the external part. You look at me and it's like, I've lost all the weight. Yeah, but what about your organs? What about the fat around your organs, your liver, your heart?
Hmm.
Is this not more important for longevity instead of just looking a certain way and having a six pack? You know, that kind of way. I think when we get older, it's like, okay, well, hang on a second. If everybody thinks I'm healthy, I'm eating oats every single morning. I'm eating my fruits, my berries. I'm having my salads, but I'm still walking around with arthritis in my shoulders. I still have mental health issues. I'm still depressed. I'm taking all this medication. Are you really that healthy?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people can just go to the gym and work out all day and look like they are healthy. They're going to have the six pack, but the fuel inside their body is what? Willy Wonka, you know? Like, I
Yeah,
don't know.
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't understand. I don't understand where these crazy diets come from or who makes them up, and it's
And
scary. I
and
mean,
then when they hear and when they hear the carnivore diet, they're like, okay, this is another fad
oh
diet.
yeah, I don't like to call
Mhm.
it a diet at all. I just say carnivore. Yeah, I'm more, you know, I did not. I like I said, I did carnivore for 9 months, and I got all those health benefits and everything. But the thing is that I had that food addiction. I had the binge eating disorder, and the binge eating disorder is still going to be part of my life, and it's hard to battle it. So I had to include a little more variety in my dish and textures. I knew somebody that went to it was like a eaters therapy camp or something, and what they taught them was that different textures on your plate would help like alleviate the binge cravings. So like sauerkraut has like a sourish flavor and a weird texture, and then the meat has a different texture and a flavor, and then maybe a little bit of berries or something. For me, that like whole array of different experiences with the food, it just satisfies me. So I'm still meat. I still eat a lot of meat, trust me, but I have to have that variety in order for my brain to say, okay, you're satisfied.
Do you still think you're struggling with a sugar addiction?
Oh God, I love sugar still. I
Mm,
can't. It's one of those things. I grew up on Jolly
mhm.
Ranchers and things like that when I was a kid, and it sends a very lovely feeling through my body. But then the aftermath, the diabetes, when my sugar spikes, I feel like I want to go to bed.
Yeah.
I feel very tired. I feel old, sluggish. My fingers swell up. When I found out that sugar actually makes you retain water,
Mm,
I was like, oh God, no.
mm,
Everyone tells you it's salt, but it's actually the sugar.
Yeah.
mm, mm,
So I'm training myself. I'm still in this process. I'm still training myself
mm,
to look away. I'm
mm.
very good at it. I mean, I watch people eat donuts in front of me, and I just sit and go, okay, great. Hope you're enjoying that.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. See, this is the argument about carbohydrates. People will say that you can actually control your weight eating carbohydrates, but that's not the problem. The problem is what leads to this overeating in the first place. When you talk about Ozempic, the big thing about Ozempic for a lot of people, for like 90% of people, is their addiction with the food.
mhm,
Like you
mhm,
ask anybody who's obese, why can you not stick to a diet? They'll always say, because I'm always hungry.
yeah.
I eat regularly. I can never shut off that hunger hormone. I don't know what's going on. That's why they brought out the Ozempic. But
Okay.
what people don't understand that you
Yeah.
can actually do that through an animal-based diet. Now,
Yes.
a
They
lot
don't
of people will say,
understand.
yeah, a lot of people will say, well, I've done Atkins in the past. I've done Atkins in the past, and I felt miserable, and I didn't like it. It was horrible. But that's because they went high protein.
Yeah.
Like if you're eliminating a carbohydrate source, which is everybody will talk and say it's your main energy source.
Mhm,
If you eliminate that and replace it with a better energy source, which comes from fats,
mhm.
you're not only are you going to feel better, but you're going to reduce the inflammation of your body. And like you said, when people gain weight, when you're like obese, let's say you're 300 pounds like overweight, most of that weight is water.
Hmm.
It's just glycogen. So when you go on an animal-based diet, I've seen this with lots of females. Within a week, they lose 20 pounds, and they're like, "Oh my God, I've lost 20 pounds in the
Yeah.
scales. That must be body fat." But it's water. And then as they get leaner, that weight begins to stall. So that's what should happen. So it's like, okay, well, hang on a second. If you're obese, what are you burning? You're burning sugar. You're burning glucose. You're burning excess water. You're burning inflammation. You're burning all this stuff that's in your body that shouldn't be there in the first place. You know
Yep.
what I mean? And it's like when
Yeah.
you eliminate that, not only are you going to lose the weight, but all those pains, like the depression, the mental health, the arthritis, the knee pains, the back pains, like the PCOS, the endometriosis, fibromyalgia, like the list goes on and on and on. And I've always said to people, like, listen, I'm not a doctor. I've been doing this for 4 years, and I've always said to people, like, listen, I'm going to state it clearly that I'm not a doctor. But in
Yeah.
4 years, I have worked with over 250 women,
Oh
and I
my
have
God.
seen every single condition from type 1, type 2, dementia. I've had ladies that have been in severe pain with endometriosis, and they've
Mhm.
gone to the doctor and they've said, listen, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. I've had women come to me and saying to me, all I want to have is a family. That's all I want. But you have to go down the the doctors will say you have to go down the IVF route. The IVF route costs around $10,000, $15,000.
Oh yeah.
You take these women on, you put them on an extremely high fat. Within 6 months, I get a message, Mark, I'm pregnant.
Oh my gosh.
Wonderful.
Like, what do you want me to say? And then when you go back to the evidence with the doctor, and the doctor is saying, how are you pregnant? And then the doctor and the patient will say, I'm on a high fat diet. Guess what the doctor says? You need to get off that diet because it's going to kill you.
Haha.
I want to tell you something. I had a hormone panel done a couple months ago, and I wanted to know like how close I was to menopause. I said, "How close am I?" And he goes, "You could still have a baby right now." I was like, What? I'm almost 50. Do not give me any ideas, okay? Like, I don't think I can. I don't think I can mentally have a baby. But he said, you're fine. Get lost."
That's amazing. That's what I was going
So
to say to you, Krista. Like, where are you in your life at the moment? Are you happy? Like, what's going on? I know you've been through an awful lot of trauma, but right
I
now, where are we now? Right now?
my stress is pretty bad. I had lost my job. I've been out of work for 6 months. Like I said, I'm on my own. So it's very tough. And my cortisol levels are through the roof. I can't, no matter what I'm doing, like if I'm eating carnivore or keto or whatever, weight is still on me. Like it's holding on, right? I'm in like, what is it? The fight or flight mode where your body's just holding on to everything. The stress is bad. So I'm just going to continue to, eat healthy. I do fast. I don't eat my first meal till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I try to eat my last meal before 8 o'clock. I try. But my appetite really isn't there anymore. I don't really sit and crave food or think about food. I have to remind myself to eat. I go, oh, Krista, you better eat something. So, I just eat beef, ground or ribeyes. And then, like I said, I have a little bit of that, a little bit of vegetables and this and that for the texture. So I can tell my brain that I'm happy. But I don't really, it's funny because I have friends that are on Ozempic and they're like, I don't really feel like eating food. I'm like, neither do I. And I'm not on anything. If you would just listen to me and do what I'm doing, you wouldn't have to pay all that money for these shots and go through the things they tell me, the diarrhea, the cramps, they feel unwell, just generally just feel like weird. I said, you don't have to go through all that. You can just hang out with me.
You know what the scary thing was? I was over in Florida last Christmas, and every single channel that I put on the TV, it said Ozempic in it. And it was like an ad, like a pizza ad. Okay, you have to have it. You know what I mean? Every time you switched, it was like, oh, you must have this Ozempic. This is the new craze. It's going to change your life. And you're looking at all this, and it's like all this marketing rubbish. Like this needs to stop. If only you could put like someone like myself or Ken Berry or Dr. Shafee or Sean Baker and let them speak on TV
Right.
instead of listening to this rubbish.
Right.
And I remember getting into a taxi, and this guy was huge. Like this guy was around, I say he was around 250, probably heavier. And we were in the car, and he was talking to me that he needs to lose weight. He was only a young man. He said his doctor said to me he needs to lose weight, otherwise he's going to die. And he couldn't wait. He couldn't wait until he could afford Ozempic. And it honestly, it made me so sad that he's saving up all his money to afford Ozempic.
Yeah, and that doesn't teach them anything. They don't learn about nutrition and how what you eat is so impactful on your
It was
body.
so sad. It really
So,
was. And when the
yeah,
more I
that's
kept
very
on
sad.
hearing about it, the more frustrated I was. I was like, if only, if only.
Right. I was on a fad, supplement before, and it was called ephedra. I'm sure you guys have heard of it.
Yeah.
Um, I lost a lot of weight. I will tell you, I lost 10 pounds the first week. I actually got modeling jobs after I lost like 50 pounds. I was making money. I was just like really motivated to keep taking it because of all the opportunities it opened up for me. And this was back in the 90s, right? And so when that pill, the supplement, the ephedra, actually was banned from the United States because I think 65 people died. I don't know the exact number from heart attacks. But 100, like over 160 people have died on Ozempic, and we still have it.
Oh my.
So it just doesn't make sense to me that they're acting like it's this magical thing when, back then ephedra was the magical thing. People were dying on it. Now this is a magical thing. People are dying on it. People are surviving, weird anomalies on it, and everybody that I know that's taken it tells me something bad about it. There's no like, oh, it was a smooth process, I feel amazing. I don't hear that from many people. It's always, I stayed in bed all day, I had diarrhea, I was throwing up. It was just, why do you want to put yourself through that?
But see, people look past that. They don't really care. They don't really care about the side effects as long as they've lost the weight. So
Right.
when they look at themselves in the mirror, there's like, you know what, I don't mind going through all this pain. I don't mind being constipated. As long as I'm skinny, that's all I want.
Yet the carnivore diet is too much of an extreme thing to do, and there's too much sacrifice of those sweets that they want and alcohol too. Yep, that's so ironic.
Yeah, I think that even if they just gave it a week, just eat meat for a week, they're gonna forget about cupcakes and donuts. They'll forget it existed, because that's how long it took me. Just a week. That's all it took.
I was the same. For me, it was more the mental health, the brain fog for me. But like you, Krista, like for nearly 6 months, I couldn't give up my sugar addiction. I
Yeah.
was convinced I can get away with it. I can get away with eating fruit. I can get away with eating berries. I can have a little bit of dark chocolate. And to this day, I've still experimented over the years to see where I can get away with. But I can never allow myself to be a moderator. Now I know that I just have to be strict carnivore. I know what my body needs. I feel
Yeah.
good when I'm completely strict carnivore. I actually struggle to put on weight eating the way I do, and I eat a lot of fats. Like I'd say about 70% of my caloric intake comes from fats, and around 30% comes from protein. So I'm not a big protein person, and I'm pretty much the same age as you.
Mhm.
And I don't focus on ego anymore. I don't focus on, okay, I need to look a certain way. I need to
Yeah.
have a six pack. My priorities now is my family, and I want
Right.
to see my daughter have a grandchild, and I want to live for another 50 years.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that's why
Same.
for me, I'm not going to give up on my daughter. You know what I mean? I'm going to make sure I'm there for her. And if I am on my deathbed, it's going to be my decision. I've
Yeah.
done everything in my power to make sure that I'm not in their hands, and I took control of my own life.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we should all be doing before we actually go to the doctor. Because don't get me wrong, I'm not against doctors. If I have a broken leg, or if I need to have heart surgery, I'll be there straight away. But you
Right.
don't come to me with nutrition advice, because I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. When I was in the
I,
hospital after the Ozempic overdose issue, the woman that came in to give me nutrition advice, she was, 3 times my size. And she's giving me advice about eating. And, of course, it's the food pyramid she shows me.
it's amazing,
Here's
isn't it? It's crazy,
the carb.
crazy.
You can have carbs. You can do this. And, I sat there. I was like, okay, great. I didn't even listen to her. I was just like, whatever,
Mm. And
I don't know.
I know you mentioned this at the very, very beginning about our parents in the 1960s. We were taught all this. I was taught this 20 years ago in nutrition school. When I went to nutrition school, I spent a fortune on this. We were told, okay, you follow the food pyramids. The majority of your diet should be rich in carbohydrates. Make sure you're eating fibers. Their place should be the rainbow on it. We should be focused on lean sources of protein. When it comes to the fats, very, very minimal, if any. You shouldn't be having anything. Keep your cholesterol low. Your cholesterol should never be as high ever. And
Yeah.
like you, 5 years ago, when I came across this podcast of Carnivore, I was like, this is never going to work. Like, how is this going to work? Just eat meat, your cholesterol, eat fat. Surely if I do this, I'm going to have a heart attack. And it wasn't until I went against it and I said, you know what, I'll just try it. I'll just do it for 1 week. Within 1 week, all my symptoms just disappeared. I was like, holy shit, is this just me? I was like, okay,
No,
well,
yeah. It's not
let's just do
just
it.
you.
Yeah. And I was like, let's do it another week. And then I was getting better. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I can't keep this to myself now. So what I said was, okay, I'll do this for at least a month. I'll do it for a month, and then I'll start talking about it. And then I said, right, okay, I've done it for a month and I feel amazing. Now I need to do more research. So looks at all the big influencers, Michaela Peterson,
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Peterson, like everybody. I studied this for like 6 months nonstop. Like I studied this diet more than I ever done in any diet in my life. And the transformations and the people that were coming out with the stories like yourself. This is why I love having these conversations with you, like, because I like hearing these stories, because these doctors and these nutritionists and these dietitians will base everything on science. Like, trust
Right.
the science, trust the data, trust the research. But I'm like, I don't care about your research. I want you guys to listen to Krista. I want you to hear her story. Are you gonna tell me that her story is like bullshit? Like, I don't care what studies you have. You need to listen to this woman. This
Yeah.
woman has gone through an awful lot of trauma in her life. And
When
you
I
guys
just
are sorry,
when
go
I
ahead.
just show people, I'm sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to say, when the proof is in the pudding, I said, look at me, look at me, look at my hair, look at my skin, look at pictures of me 10 years ago. I had horrible skin. My hair was falling out. I didn't look, good. I looked sickly.
Mhm.
And I said, just look at the pictures. You can't argue with me when you look at me in person and then look at those pictures when I was in my 30s. Somebody's going to be like, holy crap, either you had, like a face transplant, or or you're wearing a wig,
Yeah.
which I'm not. I grew all my hair back by eating animal fats, and my hair's super shiny and thick. And I put animal fat on my face every single day.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing. And I know, Victoria, you struggled with gout for over 30 years. And like, what were the doctors saying to you?
To avoid red meat and alcohol. And that
Mhm.
was it. That was the most they could help me with, and take some pain relievers. And there really was no cure and no help. It just wasn't helpful. And in listening to Krista's journey, it really reflects a lot of my life. I had PCOS and endometriosis, and that was cured with a hysterectomy. So it wasn't there. I had fibroid tumors too,
Mm.
but carnivore really helped. The fibroids they're gone.
Oh my
I
gosh.
had them in both breasts, and every year I'd have a mammogram, and I'd have to also have an ultrasound. And they'd say, "Oh, this is very troubling. We see these growths," and they had to make sure. They never gave me a biopsy, but they had to make sure that they weren't cancerous. And then a couple of years ago, I went for a mammogram, and they were just gone. And I asked about them, and they said, "There's nothing there. We don't see anything." So they could see through the tissue now that used to be dense, that used to be fibroid tissues. And the years of pain, and I had a period for 2 years solid
Yeah.
before they allowed me to have a hysterectomy, and they still called it elective, and I had to pay big
Oh
bucks for
my
it.
gosh.
But yeah,
Oh,
ridiculous. They have no clue sometimes about that the whole
No.
situation. But carnivore has really helped. Really has helped.
I want to be respectful of your time, Krista, but before I let you go, if anybody's listening to this right now that's in your situation and is really, really suffering, what message would you give these people?
Just give it a week. Just give it a week. I was addicted to food so bad that I made myself sick, and it's going to take years to unwind that. And I'm still on that journey, but just give it a week. Listen to Mark. Do your research. It's not just us three that have done this. There's a whole community out there. I encourage you to join Facebook groups, especially the Instagram community has been just so amazing and so helpful. I have new friends here, that give me support, but also get yourself a carnivore buddy. You really need somebody to, check in with you every day. Like, how are you doing? Are you having food cravings? Let me talk you through it. You really just need a support system too. But, it's really, at the end of the day, it's all you. You're the star of the show. You have to make the decisions, and you're gonna feel so young and good. Like, if you want to feel like you're 16 again, I'm telling you, like, I can hike uphill. I can do all kinds of things I couldn't do 10 years ago in my 30s, and I'm doing it now. So give it a week, give it a try, listen to Mark.
Yeah, and
um,
I just want to add in as well that for anybody's listening, we need to move away from weight loss. We really
yeah,
do. Yeah,
yes,
if your body's in so much pain, you need to understand you need to heal the body. And that's what Chris is going through at the moment. She's healing her
yeah,
body, and it's taking a little bit longer. But I'm absolutely convinced, Chris, that the more you keep on doing this, in 1 year's time, we're going to have
yeah,
a different conversation. And I think that's important. I think if you're going to, you have to understand that if you've been doing 30 years of like constant just eating crap, junk after junk after junk, it's probably going to take around 2 years for your body to completely heal. And
right,
then once your body heals, you're going to lose the weight. You're going to feel better. You're going to feel amazing. You know what I mean? So it's very important that we move away from weight. Weight loss is not going to change your life. What you
right,
see on the outside is not a true reflection on what you see on the inside. We have to focus on how do we feel? How do
yep,
you feel first of all? And then when you feel amazing, guys, it's going to show on the outside.
it will, it will.
Anything you want to add, Victoria?
Wow, I'm just so impressed with the changes you've been through and how you've survived them and found carnivore. And I congratulate you. It's wonderful. It's a
Thank you,
great story, amazing story.
thank
And
you.
I wish you all the best.
Yeah, I have my cancer scan on Friday, so we'll see if anything has progressed since the surgery that from last year. And I'm telling you, I've worked so hard to not have a reoccurrence of this thyroid cancer. I would be really surprised if they said it came back. I'd be really surprised, but
Mm.
I don't think so. I think I'm good. I'm just going to think positive about it and go get the scan. If it comes back that something's wrong, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, deal with it as it comes.
Well, we'll definitely have to get you on in a few months' time, Krista, and see where
Yeah,
you are in your journey. Definitely,
for
100%.
sure.
I'd definitely like to get you on in a few months and see if anything's improved.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to reach out to you and be a friend with you, like where can they find you?
Well, I'm on Instagram. My handle is diabetique_girl, but it's spelt crazy. But you can just look up, I think, Krista Robin, KristaRobyn. I think you can find me there. But I'm always on Instagram, so just look for my name, Krista Robin. I should be the only one out there.
We'll put your name below so
Yeah.
people can
Yeah.
easily find you.
Okay.
Well, Krista, it's been an absolute pleasure having
It
you
was so
on.
nice to meet you
I'm
both.
gonna keep you on this when we leave here, but it's absolutely an absolute pleasure. And I'm looking forward to having you again on very, very soon, in a few months' time,
All
hopefully.
right. I'll be happy to come back.
Thanks very
All
much.
right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.